Hi, today I'm going to talk to Darren Tan, Managing Director of WorldExpress DMC in Singapore. Thank you very much for your time today. I know you're busy or trying to keep yourself busy as everybody's doing in our business right now. Um, I would like to ask you about the current situation in Singapore. Like maybe you could tell us something about the general situation in regards to tourism, like about the airlines, hotels. You're involved a lot in cruises, I know. So maybe about the cruise business, hotel, and all about MICE, like just a general overview. Maybe if you could talk about it or start with that, would be great.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks, Yuji, for setting this up, and welcome. Hello from Singapore. Greetings. I think what I'll do is I'll give an overview of the situation in Singapore with regards to the COVID virus, and then I will also go into tourism. So basically, like every country, we have had quite a number of cases in Singapore. Initially, we were quite low, and I think Singapore was, shown in the press that we were, a model for many countries. But sometime in March, cases in Singapore actually spiked quite high, and our cases kept going up. So from about late March to currently, we actually went from very low numbers to over 30,000. We actually had hit 33,000 cases in Singapore as of today. So it's actually not a low number for a small country like Singapore, which is only a population of 5.7 million. But I have to say that, you have to look at the figures a bit deeper because although the figure sounds high, 33,000, but we have a very low death rate, which is only 23 people, which is a very, very low percentage. So I think the reason for that is because, first of all, there's a very, very extensive testing in Singapore with regards to the virus. And also of the 33,000 cases, actually over 90%, about 93%, 31,000 of that is actually confined to one particular segment, which is actually the foreign workers in Singapore. So these are more like the construction workers. And because there was a big outbreak, it spread very fast in this sector because these workers live in dormitories that are quite small. So it spread very fast. But after that, the government ring-fenced this and is able to contain that. So if you look at the numbers, like yesterday, there were like, I think 370 cases, but only one case was outside that community. So in the greater community, the cases are actually only single digit. So we are actually, now we had a lockdown in Singapore in early April, where all the offices were closed. And actually on June the 2nd, we will start what we call is phase one of reopening the economy. So phase one, June 2nd, they are only going to open offices that don't deal with retail customers, like essential services. In fact, travel companies like ours are not allowed to open in phase one. So we will only open in phase two, which is 1 month later, likely to be in July. That's what we estimate. So for us, this is quite promising because actually there are signs that, the economy is restarting again. There's a lot of excitement. And we ourselves are gearing up for phase two, which is basically July and the start of the third quarter of this year. So that's when actually we expect restaurants to open, subject to like having 5 people per table. So there'll be conditions in place like safe distancing, wearing of masks is mandatory in Singapore. So there's all these measures in place to reopen the economy. So that's where we are in terms of the general situation. Then I will touch a bit on the tourism sector, Yuji. So I think for of course for tourism, if you look at the airlines and the airport, basically is totally shut down at the moment. Singapore Airlines actually reduced their capacity down by 96%. So you have just some flights that are for very, very essential travel. It's basically a shadow of what it used to be. And I think it's only in July onwards that we hope to see the beginning of some air travel. And again, in our airports, Changi Airport in Singapore, they have actually shut down 2 terminals because of the reduced capacity. And one of the terminals actually is to bring forward the renovation and restoration. So it's not, partly it's because of capacity, but the other reason is to take this time to speed up the renovation work so that when we can fully open within about a year and a half time, our Terminal 2. Then you look at the hotel sector. This one, I think, in Singapore, actually, although there's no tourism coming in, but the hotels have been used to house quarantine people on quarantine, and there's also, I think, a lot of pent-up demand for staycations. So even though Singapore, you don't really have a domestic market because it's, we only have one airport, but there is, I think, pent-up demand for locals to get away from home, and probably we will start seeing that maybe in July onwards. And of course, for companies like ours in the travel and MICE business, we are actually totally, there's no business now, but we keep in touch with the staff. Everyone is working from home, and being busy preparing for the future. We also have sent a lot of staff on training, and we are doing projects like being active on social media to try to beef up our presence there. And the other segment you mentioned was the cruise lines, and this one, of course, we as a company actually do a lot of shore excursions and ground services for the cruise ships that come to Singapore. And I think the cruise market has been, very hard hit because of all the publicity from the people who, got infected by the virus on ships. So looking at the future, I think the ships are also, taking a very strong approach to sanitation, distancing. From what I understand, initially the ships are may not operate with 100% occupancy, just to go on a low occupancy for more safe distancing. And in terms of, for us as a ground operator, we foresee a bigger demand for private tours as opposed to group tours, private shore excursions. We currently operate bus loads for when the ships come, but in the future we foresee a need for besides sanitation, also safe distancing on the bus, perhaps alternate seats, not filling up the bus to 50% capacity, for example, and a lot more options for private touring. So just in a nutshell, some of the situation with the tourism scene in Singapore, Yuji.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I mean, from what you talk about, there are a lot of challenges, of course, as a result of this situation. For you as a DMC, you already talked about some measures. Or the time. What you are doing. I mean, it's for us. We always think, this crisis is always a chance also, to start something new, maybe to redefine the content of companies. A lot of companies are going virtual. What are your general challenges? I mean, for yourself. I mean, we have some help here in Germany, for example, with the state is helping a little bit. I mean, we're pushing a lot right now. I mean, Lufthansa is in the news every day, actually. So there is some kind of support. Is there anything in Singapore, like is STB, the Singapore Tourism Board, doing something special, or what are they trying, or is there any support from in Singapore?
Oh yes, yeah. In fact, that has been a big thing in Singapore. In fact, for all businesses. The government actually came up with several rounds of stimulus budget supports. In fact, they had initial one in I believe it was in March, the first one, and then they had a subsequent one. And in fact, just 2 days ago, they had the fourth budget. So there has been, to give you an example, for travel, they have this what they call the job support scheme. It's basically a scheme to help companies like us to keep staff employed. So what the government does is in fact, it's up to 10 months for aviation and tourism companies, and we qualify. They actually provide wage support of 75% of the staff pay for 10 months. And of course, there will be a cap to it. For example, the cap is $44,600, which is about maybe 3,000 euros. So that will be the cap of the support. But basically, they are supporting 75% of the wages. So that is actually, for us, that's a tremendous support. It's really a relief because at the moment, the sales is basically zero for these few months. And I think, third quarter also we don't foresee, because travel is going to be one of the last to recover. So the government came up with this support. The second one was basically also on the rental. They're giving landlords some rebate with property taxes, and so all companies will benefit from approximately 1 month to even more than 1 month, maybe 1 to 2 months. And I think they are trying to push it up further. They are discussing in Parliament. So I think companies that, like offices, may get 1 to 2 months rental support for this year. And for restaurants, it may go up to even 4 months. So that's quite helpful. And from STB, Singapore Tourism Board, the support we are getting from them is mainly in the area of training for staff. I think during this time, there's been a big push for travel companies to use this time to educate staff, to train staff, and there's a lot of so if you take a class and it costs $1,000, you can get quite a lot of subsidy. It can be, in some cases, up to 100%. In some cases, it may be less depending on the type of course. Also, the age of the worker. If you are above 40, there's even more support, on that. And there's a big push to digitize the operations. And for us also, that is one of the main things we are attempting to work on now, is to go really heavy on IT solutions and try to digitize as much of the, I know there's a certain limit, especially for us in the experience business, but I think we also want to, for example, we're working with our team to put more like virtual tours onto our website. So if you want to do a site inspection, you can see the product on the website, and it just cuts down the explanation that you have. So these are some of the things and activities we're working on, and there's some help from the tourist board on that as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was actually just going to ask you about, like, what do you think about like virtual meetings, because everybody's talking about it right now, and not just right now. I mean, we've been talking about hybrid meetings over the last years in our tourism sector. I mean, meetings, incentives, conferences. So I mean, what I always think is, like, if you, for example, if you had a group which was supposed to come in, let's say this year, maybe for a site inspection, what's going to change for a meeting planner, or what's going to change in the future? I mean, in Singapore, I mean, you have to talk to suppliers, of course, suppliers like hotels, bus companies. Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's thinking about, like, standards, protocols, hygiene protocols, maybe how to ensure that attendees will be safe. Is there any change? Let's say if you consider a group was, let's say there is a group coming in October, now they cannot come, they will come in 2021. What's going to change, or what do you have to keep in mind when you
I think that's a really you really hit it on the nail, because that's what we've been looking at. That's been the topic of discussion when we talk to venues. We actually have been we're doing a proposal now for a group in the end of the year. Hopefully it can happen. It's in Malaysia, just next to Singapore, less than an hour's flight. But the event we're looking at is actually about 100 over people. But even planning the meeting and venue parameters, the space that we require is actually going to be double what used to be in the past. Because, for example, if you had a classroom setting, last time you have a little classroom, a table where you can have 3 people in one little oblong table, and now you can only have 1 because of social distancing. And even when you do on banqueting, round tables of 10, now we are looking at maybe 5 to 6 maximum. And of course, things like buffets are out. Everyone is looking at lunchbox for the kind of lunch meals instead of buffet lines. Again, when you go off-site, transportation has to be really viewed differently in terms of providing the sanitization, face masks, and keeping vehicles not packed to the brim. So there's all these considerations that is coming up with regards to planning meetings. And the other thing that I think we you and I were talking about is about this rise of virtual meetings that seems to be happening. And I suppose it's true. Like today we're on Zoom, and there's no doubt this is going to happen more and more. But also we've found we believe that there are a lot of limitations with what you can do with virtual meetings. I think it's suitable for certain situations like internal meetings. We do that with our internal staff now because we can't meet. But even then, it's difficult to get that same kind of communication when you're on Zoom versus face to face. And I think with large meetings, when you're dealing with customers, customers of your clients, external customers, virtual meetings, there are some limitations. For example, the technology, it's not the same for everyone. For some people, there's internet lagging, audio is not up to speed. Even the etiquette for going online is different. Someone's in a suit, but another guy is in a t-shirt and has his dog barking in the background, and also with regards to interaction, I think it's quite limited that you don't have the full interaction that you have with face-to-face meetings, and of course conversations, experiences. So for us in the MICE business, I do believe eventually it will take time, but meetings will come back, and we are hopeful that perhaps the last quarter we may see some activity, but probably 2021 when we hope to see some business. I don't think it will go back to what it was so fast, but we will get there eventually. So we are all keeping our focus on that, and in the meantime, working with our staff to look optimistically to that day and preparing for it.
Fantastic. I was just going to ask you, last but not least, about the outlook for, in your eyes, everybody knows it's going to take quite a long time. We've been affected the most, I think, like travel industry. Tourism is worldwide. People slowly start to travel again. They will travel for sure, definitely. Will maybe here and there, I think there will be some corporates who which they decide not to do like sales calls in a way that you, I don't know, in Germany, fly from Frankfurt to Berlin for a 1-hour meeting. So that will be probably replaced by virtual meeting. But still, we believe like in face-to-face meetings, and I just had a talk shortly also on this channel with a good friend of mine who's doing like about Hector Venegas, who's doing like communications. And we talked about it, like it's something irreplaceable, as you say. It's limited. To deliver information via virtual meeting is possible, but we're human beings, we're analog, not digital. So we talked about before we talk now here on this channel, we discussed about like the shows we attend normally, like when we meet somewhere at IMEX in Frankfurt or wherever. It's completely different if you see each other, you have the body language, you have a coffee together. It's the whole thing is the meeting, the communication is a different one. So I mean, I think that we all agree with that. But what's your outlook for MICE in Singapore?
Like what I said earlier, I think it will take time. I think for us, MICE is, we foresee it coming back a bit slower than, for example, the FIT market. The individual travelers will come first, and then I think in Singapore, what we foresee, talking to some other friends and partners in the industry, is that we think there will be this, they use this term now, travel bubble. So we foresee that perhaps there could be a travel bubble between Singapore and maybe within Southeast Asia first, the regional travel, a bit like Europe, where you have your Schengen, Schengen travel will open up first. So that will likely happen here first, the kind of travel within the neighboring countries like Malaysia, Thailand. And I think there's a lot of discussion, obviously government to government, about opening up the borders and having, health, perhaps have a health certificate that, deems you're safe to travel. So I think initially there'll be small meetings, 50 people perhaps, and probably this will only be in the fourth quarter of the year, because I think we are already entering the second half actually very soon, in a month's time, and there is not any real signs of life yet. I think we need to warm up to have small meetings, and then hopefully again, this situation is beyond our country and what we like to do or can do. It really depends on the global situation, but I think fourth quarter, we hope there will be signs of life, and then really next year, hopefully we can start having meetings again, and adjust along the way all the different protocols that we have to do. I suppose after 9/11, we had to do that with flying, all the security measures, and of course this is actually a even greater challenge, because it's beyond just getting on the plane. It's meeting, it's traveling on the ground, eating at restaurants. So it's something that it's for us unprecedented, but we think, and I believe meetings will exist.
Yeah.
So but it will be, obviously it will take some time. So let's look to next year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we think so too. I mean, everybody in Germany right now is talking about the second wave, being expected maybe in October. Yeah, I mean, people are maybe a little bit more used to this way of lockdown, whatever. So, yeah, let's hope for the best. I mean, we have approximately the same outlook. So maybe end of the year, fourth quarter, and then slowly but surely maybe into the next year. We have to see how the summer develops in Europe, because right now we're trying to, everybody's talking about holidays already in June, July, August, and they're trying to, start very slowly, and let's see the effects. But it was super interesting to hear something about Singapore. And I mean, we keep in touch anyway, and I would like to thank you for your time, Darren, today.
Yeah, no, pleasure, Yuji. Thank you for doing this also.
We definitely keep in touch, and hope to share this with a lot of MICE colleagues who are interested in what's going on in the agencies right now, and also clients, of course. And we definitely keep in touch. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, Yuji.
Good afternoon to Singapore then.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye.